It's 4 o'clock, but we're going to wait just a few minutes to see if some other educators or partners will be joining us. So we'll start in about 3 minutes. Everyone will be muted, and we'll turn the show over to Michelle after some introductions. Okay, welcome everyone. Again, this is Nancy Allen, and we just appreciate you making. We believe professional development and brief, quick little professional developments that we can provide for you throughout the year, we hope will be valuable to you in the classroom. Joining me today is Phyllis Johnson. Phyllis is the immediate past chair of the board for the National Consortium, and we appreciate the work that she does to get this set up. We're committed to offering webinars throughout the year. We'll try to get those schedules out 1 to 2 months in advance. You should already know about, there's one coming up 2 weeks from today, which is March 25th. And that will be one that speaks to industry recognized certifications. Then on April 1, in honor of the Donate Life Month, we'll have one on organ and tissue donation and all the details that might be valuable for you to share with your students. Have already had some teachers ask, is this something my students could sign up for? And we are not opposed to that because we are really committed to getting that message out. And then we have the next one scheduled on May 22nd. We were sort of working around Easter and spring breaks, and hopefully there won't be school closings, but we were working around that. And there's one on QR codes and how you can use those to manage your classroom. We'll have one more in May, and we haven't set the subject for that yet, but we'll get that out to you. By virtue of you registering for the webinars, we have you in our database, so we won't leave you out. You'll get emails that remind you about this opportunity. So today, we are excited to have Michelle Graves with us. She is in her first life a certified athletic trainer, and I think she still has some responsibilities along those lines with her high school, and she's been a health science teacher for the past 17 years. And we've known Michelle for a while, and she was at our 2019 National Health Science Conference, which was in St. Louis. And I remember the day that she was presenting, people on the staff were coming to say, that room is full, that room is full, and there's even people in the hall. So we committed that to memory because we knew that what she was providing for the attendees there at the conference would be something that others across the nation would be interested in hearing. So Michelle's going to talk with you about 40 to 45 minutes. She's going to go through through a PowerPoint. And the format will be that you'll have an opportunity at the end to ask questions. And that seems to work better if we do it through our chat. So you should have a place on your screen there to put questions in. Michelle will see those. If she's getting more than she can handle, we'll help make sure she doesn't leave anybody out. And then, so we're looking at this entire webinar lasting about an hour. It will be recorded. It's recorded now, and then we'll post the link to the recording, and Michelle has given us permission to post her PowerPoint as well. So if you want to refer back to that or tell your friends about it or remind people that maybe didn't have an opportunity to join us today, that it will be on our website. So with that, Michelle, are you ready to go?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much. Welcome.
All right. Thank you, Nancy. I want to thank the consortium for inviting me to participate with the webinar today. This is an honor for me. I have taught this lesson several times at my own home school as well as at the Nietzsche conferences. So I'm excited to be able to share this with more people. I'll give you a little bit about me here. There we go. This is my classroom. This was my advanced sports medicine students. This was the day of our little holiday party this year. But I teach health professions, I teach sports medicine, and I teach medical terminology. Like she said, I've been teaching for 17 years. I've been an athletic trainer for 20 years, so I get to teach what I do, which is a great passion for me on both sides. I am a mom of 3, pretty proud of my boys. My oldest is currently being recruited for football, so that's pretty exciting. So we're busy at home as well as in the classroom. My husband is actually my high school principal as well, so it's kind of the family business. But I would tell you, I was there first. And so I've been an athletic trainer, like I said, for 20 years, and I teach through the scope of being an athletic trainer in my health professions classrooms. So some things we're going to learn today, teaching strategies, what you can do in your classroom to personalize it, especially for new teachers, and management skills. And I'll give you some websites and some apps that I've applied in my teaching that have been beneficial. So those are some things you can check out. This little video, you guys can click on it on your own time, this Kid President, if you haven't seen it already. It's what are you going to teach? So what are you going to offer to your students and to the world through your teaching? And I think that's a pretty great little video. I'm going to race through this. I want to give you as much information as I possibly can, because I feel like it's really valuable, especially to some new teachers or people trying to organize their classrooms. So some things to think about with your students. Are they social media or computer savvy? There is a huge difference, because yes, they're on their phones and they can use a computer, but their computer skills are highly lacking, I've found. At the high school level, and I teach freshmen all the way up to seniors, and I can see it at various levels that you really have to teach what you want them to do on a computer. If you're using Chromebooks, teach them how to upload to Google Docs. And they use so many different platforms for learning management systems. In my current school, I should go back and let you know, I work in Idaho, and I'm in kind of a rural area where I'm in a farming community. Some of my students don't even have internet at home, which I'm sure that we see that across the country. So again, working on their computer savvy skills, like teaching them how to upload documents. Every teacher seems to have their own expectations, and they are going through between 4 and 8 teachers a day of what those expectations are. So be sure that you are helping them retain the information that you want them to have in your classroom, and what your expectations are, and don't assume that they know how to do it. I've realized most of them don't, even if they have daily access. So use the technology to help you. Don't get overwhelmed by it. So in some things that we're going to talk about today, some of the web apps. Pick up something that works for you. Don't be paralyzed by technology, and that's something I've said for a long time, because there's so much out there, there's so many opportunities and so many different things. If you try to do too much, it does become overwhelming. So pick one thing that works and master it for you and your students. So this is probably my biggest or best, I should say, skill as a teacher is my classroom management. I take this really serious in the fact that I create routines every day. I know what on-task behavior looks like, and I teach that to my students as to what it should look like for them. They know what to expect when they come in my classroom. They know what they can and cannot do. And it is crazy what I can see in some of these students when I go see them in another classroom, walking through, talking to other teachers, and their behavior in one classroom versus what they would do in mine, and just, you know, probing that student in the hallway and saying, hey, you would never do that in my room. They're like, yeah, but they let us. And it's really not that you let your students behave that way. It's just a matter of the expectation that you create on a daily basis. And those routines are huge. Be proactive. One thing about being proactive is using a seating chart. I've had teachers say that they don't use a seating chart. They want the student to feel comfortable in their classroom. I will tell you this, they are the most comfortable when they have a place to sit every single day. When they're fighting for a certain seat or a couch in your classroom, it creates competition that's negative. I have not seen that create a positive environment in a classroom yet. The expectation that you create with your seating chart is about that daily routine and where they're going to be. And it's crazy if they come in to take a test like after school or at lunch, watch those students. They will go to their seating charts desk to take that test, and nobody else is in the classroom. It blows my mind because they have these expectations for themselves because they know what you expect in their classroom, in your classroom, and it creates that routine. It's fabulous. What does that look like with technology? So some things that you can do with like cell phones. And I know cell phones is a huge battle. We could talk about that all day long, but I won't. My expectation is they put it in their backpacks. We are allowed to have backpacks in our classroom. I know other rooms you can use the computer or the calculator pockets that they check them in, or the clamshells that they have to lock them in, or there's a lot of things that you can use. Just create a routine and know that they know the expectations of what they can and can't do with a cell phone in your classroom. Same with Chromebooks or laptops or iPads. What are their expectations? When is it on? When is it closed? They know in my room when they can open them and when they close them. What is your policy versus your school's policy? And I know that kind of can vary, but you can create a classroom policy that your administration will support when it comes to some of the technology that's being used. What else can I say? Interactive and organizational notebooks. So I do use a notebook in my classroom. It's expected that they have certain files. They have a spiral that they keep all their notes in, so it stays in chronological order from start to finish. That way I know they know the information they're supposed to have at any given time, and it's consistent. I do expect them to bring it to class every day. I do grade them regularly, so I know that it's organized and my expectations are being met. A piece of that is just teaching them organizational skills. They're going to need that for post-secondary as well as any job. They need to learn those organizational skills. Interactive notebooks, I do a lot of cut and paste, so they put the diagrams inside that spiral with their notes. When they're studying, everything's in one spot. They don't have to go between different folders or books to get the information. So that's something that has been beneficial for me that others have used as well. Management continues. So be in control of your classroom. Never let your students vote. I have teachers do this all the time, and I get frustrated by it because they own your classroom the minute you give them a vote. It's kind of like the toddler. If you got to let them choose between the black socks and the white socks. You get what you want either way, and they feel like they had a voice in it. That's the type of vote you can use. Do not ask for them to vote if they want the lights on or the lights off during a video. video. If you're showing something that's content-based, you should have the lights partially on. You should never have it dark. If you're using a PowerPoint, you should never have it dark. You don't know where their eyes are. You don't know what they're doing. Of course they want it dark. That is going to be their vote. I will tell you that right now without them voting. So choose wisely when it comes to a vote. Make sure that you're owning your classroom, that they're not. And that goes back to the seating chart. If you don't have one, you let them have that choice. They own you. They own your room. They feel in control. So when it comes to expectations, it becomes less. The cup you're seeing on the computer screen, on the picture with the popsicle sticks, I do this a lot where I pick numbers. Each student is assigned a number, like on the first day of class, they write it down, they know their number for the whole semester. So when I do random questioning, I can pull a number and they have to be on task. They have to be ready to answer that question. Sometimes I will have them line up by number, or I'll have them redraw a stick to do a new seating chart. So it's totally random as to where they're going to sit today because they have to get in numerical order with a new popsicle stick. So there's a lot of things you can do with numbers or categorizing your students and keeping them on task. And the new thing I have found, and I will highly advise this, and this is just silly, but they all love their Hydro Flasks and their cell phones and their computers and those silly stickers they put on them. I bought a pack of like 200 stickers on Amazon for $8, and they go bananas for stickers. So if you want to do prizes, we're going to talk about games later on. Right now, they will do anything to have to go to the sticker box. And these are high school students. So that has been a really fun thing for my classroom recently. Students need experiences and to create an emotional connection. So I did some brain-based learning, and what I learned is they remember 33% of what they read, 50% of what they're told, but 100% of what they feel. So if you can create an emotional connection in your classroom, you are leaps and bounds above anything that they already know, and that's because they will remember that with that emotional memory. Piece of this is telling stories. You can teach 100% of what you're teaching by telling a story. For example, I had as an athletic trainer, I had a cheerleader that went down. She had long story short, she ended up having a kidney that never developed, and she had kidney cysts that were rupturing, which had caused her pain. She didn't fall. There was no other mechanism of injury. And I talk about all the things we went through, from shock and what was happening with her kidneys, what was happening with her pain, how we transported. And when we get to questions on the test about shock or concussion or any of these other symptoms that she may have been having, they think, and they actually write down, well, the cheerleader had this. And they get the answer right. I didn't need to know it was the cheerleader, but they understand the information because they felt the story that I was telling through that story. So remember that emotional connection. And that goes on many levels, that if you're connecting with your students and knowing who they are, remember telling them good luck at tonight's game or good job at last night's game. That also creates emotional connection with you as the teacher. That's going to help them connect with your classroom. So those are all things to remember in your teaching. I teach on a block schedule, so we do 4 blocks a day, every other day. So I see my students every other day, and you've got to incorporate movement. I know that there's a lot of 6, 7, 8 period classes out there still, and you have less time and you're rushing to get through it. But for those of you that are on the block schedule, remember, it's not about taking a break halfway through class and going to the bathroom. You can teach for 90 minutes and they can actually not go to the bathroom in a 90-minute class period, believe it or not. If you have enough movement and activities strategically placed, they're going to do just fine. It's all about them getting bored is when they need to go to the bathroom. With your block strategies, some things I recommend is never lecture for longer than 15 to 20 minutes. The retention goes down every minute after 10 minutes is what some of the research I found. So remember that when you're lecturing, that you got to have an activity, some sort of motion, some sort of talk that incorporates what you just taught to remind them of what they did before you move on to the next segment of lecturing. I know there's a lot of time we do activities or maybe worksheets where they're kind of doing some independent things, and you put music on in your classroom. So when you're using music, needs to be also well thought out. Do not use music that they recognize that is their favorite. I had a teacher say she chose a song from each student at the beginning of the year for what their favorite song was, and she would play that at the beginning of the class period for one student a day, and they got excited saying, this is my song. But then for the rest of the class period, don't use their music, use music that they don't necessarily connect to. It does help an environment in your classroom, it does help the distractions, but if they are connecting with the music, they're not connecting with their learning. So that's something to think about when you're choosing to use music as a whole. Again, I just already talked about that emotional connection with telling a story and using those into your lessons. And as health professions teachers, we're so lucky because we have so many stories that go with our lessons and go with the things that we're teaching. So you can use those stories. I steal stories. People tell me stuff and I use them in my classroom. So beg, borrow, and steal. Use those stories to help create that memory for your students. And it does create more of that fun environment for them as well. If the student's having fun, they are going to be learning, they are going to stay awake, they're not going to be using the bathroom. All of those things are going to fall into place. Another thing I do in my classroom is we create curiosity. And some things that we do about this is, like I said, routine is huge. They know from the time they come in my room what the expectation is, and pretty much a chronological order for that day according to the lesson plan. But some things I've done in the past is move your desks around on a specific day, put them in blocks or a circle, square them up, straighten them out, whatever it might be that's different. They will walk in, they will freeze at the door, and they will ask you if you've gone insane as to why your room looks different today and where do they sit. I let them sit wherever they want on this day. Again, that blows their mind because they think I'm losing my mind, which is great. They are so curious about what we're going to do, and then I play some sort of game. I have a plethora of games that we've done that I've either borrowed or that I've created. And for example, I've done a game that I call Survivor, and everybody has to stand up or sit on top of their desk, and then they get a question. They can phone a friend. They can save themselves if they miss a question, different things that I've incurred in order for them to get points. And with that, they have to answer the questions correctly to stay alive, and we have the ultimate survivor, and then I give bonus points on a test, or now they get to earn stickers. Anything of those things that are outside of their routine that creates curiosity will also help their memory. I played this game, Operation. I've found these at the local youth ranch in Goodwill, and I've collected, I have about 20 games in my classroom, and we don't use the money or the cards, but I use the game board that buzzes and beeps at them, and they get in groups of like 4 around a table, and they play the game using their own questions that they've created. One person asks the question, another person has the game board in front of them. If they get the question right, they get to play Operation and take out a piece. They keep their bones at the end. The person with the most bones wins for their little pod or their group. And then I move the questions around the classroom for the 30-40 minutes that we're playing. They absolutely love this. It's been really fun. They do tend to ruin the game, so I have to be careful with that, but they love it, and it's a fun way to review questions, do something different for the day that's outside of the usual lesson. Some other things about creating routine, exams. When you are in post-secondary or in college, what are you seeing? You're seeing college exams, and you have a midterm exam, you have a final exam. But in high school, I've noticed all the teachers are giving tests. We all give tests. Well, when we're using the term test, sometimes students aren't connecting with that term like they would be with the term exam. An exam sounds really serious. Well, a test is really serious. And what we're doing is we're not setting them up for that, the feeling of an exam when they get to college or post-secondary. So I have changed the terminology in my classroom, and it's simply vocabulary. I'm just using the word exam, that we're taking an exam on Friday for this unit exam, for example, versus taking a test. It just is setting them up for when they get to college and are going to be taking exams, that they have that same feeling that a test is an exam, it's the same thing, and that it goes through that thought process with them a little easier. Daily routine, so we're talking about like formative assessments, like every day, what are you doing to earn their grade? Part of that routine, they know the expectation. If they're not doing something today, if it's not a notebook check, if it's not a daily quiz, what are they doing to earn that as their points for the day? Make every day purposeful for them, so they know when they come in your door, it's not like I have to take a quiz every single day in Mrs. Graves' classroom, but they know that they have something that's going to be checked. I have, for midterms, they have to do their flashcards on either Quizlet or on their phone or on or paper. So they have to show me that they did their homework and created their class flashcards. There's different things you can do to earn their grade every day. Make sure that your formative assessments are setting them up to be successful when it comes to their summative assessment at the end of the unit, when they have to take that exam. Some things that I've done in the past that have been beneficial, I take about 10 points or 10 questions from the unit before that was missed, and that's what I review. Because remember, we're in a rush. We got to get through a lot of stuff in a year, but if they're not getting something, you have to go back and reteach it. Well, reteaching takes time. So you're going to reteach through telling them these are the pieces you're going to need, and these are going to be on our next test. Everything is compounding for the end of the semester. You need to know this information. An example of something I do with that is anatomical directions. Some students just don't get it, and so I keep putting it on until everybody gets it mastered, 3 or 4 tests down the line. So that's an example of using that information. You can possibly use it as extra credit on that summative assessment, to use prior information that they're bringing it back, so they're not just studying for the day and forgetting it. No surprises. I know that we feel like we're in the job of having to trick kids, but that's not our purpose. We're here to help them learn through being able to assess their own information and retain it. So a piece of that is when I'm giving notes, I say, this is a test question, or I say, hey, this is some information you need to know. This is going to help you with the next piece. That is a test question. Everything I give my students to write down is something that they're going to have to study. They're going to see that again later. I'm not making them grab information out of the air on a PowerPoint. Everything I write down is purposeful. I make them write down what's purposeful. So I'm not expecting them to just randomly find the information to study from, or it's not just from chapter 2. Chapter 2 specifically has this list of information, and that's what I'm going to give them, so I don't trick them and they say this wasn't in our study material, because that's what they're always going to want to say, is come back to you and say that it's your fault that they didn't have the information. So be sure you're giving them everything that you're going to expect them to know at the end, and no tricks. I do a ton of peer grading in my classroom. This is something that the kids have learned. We do have confidentiality practices. There have been semesters where they all get to choose a code. For example, 007, they know who they are, I know who they are, but nobody else in the room knows who they are. And so when the tests are handed out, they're grading them confidentially. Piece of this is, peer grading is great. Kids love to use a red pen. It is huge for them. They love to mark those up. But they also have to review the information. So you're getting your test graded, they're reviewing the information. It is staying confidential. They get instant feedback, because as soon as it's done, I collect the test, they come and get them from me. They're able to get the information back out of what they may have missed. The thing about it is I make them just tell me how many points they missed at the top, -1, -2, and then I go back through the test and I actually do a quick review, a scan of all those pages. I do the math, I add it up, I check to make sure for some of those key questions that they were worded correctly, or they used the vocabulary I was expecting, or the word list I was expecting, and that a student or a peer may have missed. So be sure you're doing the math at the end, that a peer is not doing any favors. There are consequences for, and that's what I say on that breaching, if they were to tell the person that they graded their test, or if they were to maybe possibly not grade it correctly by trying to help out a buddy, that comes back on them. And so be sure you have expectations for what you'll do if you're doing peer grading and how you're going to manage that. It is great. You can do data collection at the same time. I get to question number 6 and I say, hey, raise your hand if the student you graded missed number 6, and you have 12 hands go up. Okay, well, that was 50% of the test missed that question. That's on me. So that's a way to do that data collection. Very quick, very simple, all while you're going through that test at the same time. So you're not going through all 30 tests and trying to assess that information on your own. This is great when you're trying to create common assessments for you and your peer teachers that are possibly giving out the same tests, or you should be giving out the same tests if you're teaching the same content. So those are things that you can evaluate together through that process. Oh, extra credit. We gotta love extra credit or hate it. So do you give extra credit? I would say no. However, there are things I've done on my assessments to offer extra credits, such as tier 3 vocabulary, like what's the next level vocabulary, who gets it, who doesn't. That gives you really good feedback on where your students are with the information and who might be further ahead with your units or the information in general. Go back to prior knowledge. Again, use those anatomical directions. What do they remember? How many can they list? Give them extra credit for it. In my sports med class, we do SOAP notes for and they have to create a scenario or break down a scenario and put it into SOAP note format. If they sign and date it, I give them extra credit. By the end of the year, they are all signing and dating. They never forget to sign and date their SOAP notes. By the end, I no longer give extra credit, but I have created an expectation. I've created a routine that they know that is what they should do on a SOAP note through giving extra credit. Some possible pretest information for the next unit, maybe what you could offer 1 or 2 points to see where they're at. Again, you're assessing their current knowledge before you move on. I have also, Kahoot is great, or the website quizzes to create games, and the students can go on and create a Kahoot or create a game. And when they do that, they share it with me and they post it to me, and then they get extra credit. This is bonus. For 1, they had to type it all in, so they had to review the information. 2, now I have an extra Kahoot game that we can play in multiple classes that is the content that I just taught. So that is twofold. I love it. And the kids really enjoy it. Kahoot can be fun, and that's when they get to win stickers again. They love that. All right. Homework. What are we going to do with homework? Do you offer homework or not? I offer homework for flipped classroom purposes. For example, in medical terminology, they have to create their flashcards as homework. I'm not going to give them class time for that, but it is an expectation, so it is very purposeful for them to have those flashcards to study from in the future as we're moving through the unit. Other things for sports medicine, they have to review some of the videos, for example, on special tests, and then they come to class, and then we're able to talk about them, and then we're able to practice them. But if they've reviewed it in advance, by the time I get to it, it's not the first time they've seen it. So there's a way you can flip your classroom with either videos or vocabulary, and then be sure it's purposeful for them, and make sure that they know what they're supposed to study as homework. Flipped classroom seems to be the best thing that I have discovered as far as homework and having them do something at home, because it's a grade and they have to. When they're going home just to study some flashcards without a purpose of coming back and using that, I notice that becomes lost. So be sure you're giving homework that is good for them, that's going to bring it back to the classroom and going to be used. So homework is great. They need to do homework. They need to create study skills, but how are you helping them create those study skills for the next level? I have had students come back from college and come visit me in my classroom, and it's a great thing when they say, your class really prepared me for post-secondary. That's probably the biggest accolade I could get, because that's what we're here to do. So some of those things of what are you doing to set them up to be successful in your classroom and in the future. This is a really fun activity that I have. I honestly don't know where I found it. I think one of my language arts teachers had it and I borrowed it and now I use it, and it's called Sum It Up. And I think, yes, there's a link here. Am I still sharing my screen if I click on the link, Nancy?
You are.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. Hopefully I can get back. So on this Sum It Up form, you're going to have them type in like the article title. They're going to go through and list any of their known vocabulary, any unknown vocabulary. You're going to have them write 3 questions along the way while they're reading a text. They have to sum it up at the end with 20 words or less of what they just read. So this is a great way to get them into an article of some sort. I do this when I teach ACL injuries, so I have several ACL articles on rehabilitation or prehab or what that looks like, and then they go through, when we're in that unit, they do one of these on an article, and then we're able to come back with a classroom discussion about it. And it's funny, some of the things that the vocabulary that you would think is known, and they put it in the unknown. And so that's a great way for you to review and go around the room, and there's not only one student that'll have that same unknown, so it's a great way to review what they did and didn't know in that article through their reading. So when they're in that process, so obviously reading a text, highlighting it, how are they reducing it? This Sum It Up form is great to help them reduce it, categorize the information. You can use Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 vocabulary as you go through. Again, where are they at with those levels? How successful are they with some of that advanced vocabulary? Whether they've had medical terminology or not, where are they at with what you need them to know? And you can use that in any content, and that's been a really great resource for my students. Some of the tech tools, so I'm going to go straight to the bottom here on Turnitin.com. Turnitin is a website. Your school does have to have like a paid account with them. If you don't have it, it's something to look into. It is phenomenal for essay grading, especially for me, who is not a language arts teacher. I've become proficient in grading essays, but Turnitin has helped me. It checks for plagiarizing, whatever. It helps us with looking for some of those grammatical errors that you can then help with feedback for the student. And probably the plagiarism is the biggest deal with Turnitin. So that's a fabulous resource for your students to use. Quizlet, I think Quizlet's been out for a long time now, and especially for medical terminology, creating quizzes. They put in the flashcards and are able to practice those. Today's me opening a chat room. I have my students do this at home as a homework assignment. They're assigned groups and they do a group project, and they're required to do a certain meeting outside of the classroom in order to help put some stuff together. It's one way for me to know that they did it, and another way that they can get graded on it. So some things to look for there. Loom, this is a screen capturing video. It records. You can either use a recording with or without your video, so you can just use what I'm doing now with your voice and your screen, and then it gives you, as soon as you hit done recording, it gives you a link. You can post that link, which is really good for students that maybe missed a lesson. You could do a quick PowerPoint for them and post the link to your learning management system. There's ways to use this for that flipped classroom. So this is what I do with my special test. I created a video, posted it to Loom. The Loom link is downloaded and in my learning management system, so if any kid missed that day, and then when they're practicing, they can refer back to it too. So that's a really good way to do video recording. Remind has been out for a long time, and mass text messages. Remind is great for classroom. It's that one-way communication system. They can reply to you, but you don't know that you get their phone number, so it's a great third-party process to get a mass text out. I use this a lot with my HOSA students for meeting reminders, and as we're traveling to state and the international conference, etc. I talked about Kahoot already. We're the live quizzing game, and Quizlet Live also better than Quizlet in the fact that it is way interactive. And the other one I didn't add on here was Quizzes, Q-U-I-Z-Z, and that's another way that they can enter questions, and it's like a horse race that you can turn it on for the whole class, and Quizzes is really fun. Here's some more apps that you can, I'll put all the links on here that you can go through. I do have an example here for the ThingLink. You go into the ThingLink website. You can assign this as an assignment. This can be a really fun activity as you're going through whatever process. On mine, I was talking about knee injuries, and so I was able to link different videos or websites that went with the ACL or the assessment that they were doing. And they click on these websites, and it talked about the anatomy, etc. And so the kids can actually create this and turn it in as assignment. So that one was really fun for them. Instagrok is about researching and creates more of a map, kind of similar to ThingLink. Padlet for discussion boards, where you could use this like as a discussion, and they in class post it to Padlet. You have the Padlet up on the board, so you can automatically see their comments flying up on the board, and then you can have a conversation about it as a whole after they've created their personal discussion. So that one's really fun. And Pull Everywhere to do an instant survey. This is really good for icebreaker at the beginning of class. Ask a question, get them to pull in, have a quick discussion. Maybe it's a review question from something you learned in the last class, and to see what they remember. All right, let's see, where are we at with time? 35, okay, I have about 5 more minutes. So Flipped classroom, real quick, some things that have helped me. Create a blended classroom, so I'm able to use that technology. I can send it home. If they don't have the technology at home, there's ways that they can get that. You can send it home, other ways for them to have the information and then bring it back with them the next class. Pre-recorded lectures, videos, online quizzes, things that you can have them do and then bring back, so you have more time for discussion in the actual activity or practice in class over what is taught. So flipped classroom can be beneficial. I'm sure everybody's using a learning management system of some sort. Again, I use Schoology. I know Google Classroom is big. My Big Campus, there's so many, Canva. So whatever you're choosing, however you post to that, and just create an expectation. What's the routine? Every day they should go home knowing that they need to come back with something for tomorrow, and that will help with your lessons as you're moving through to keep things productive. All right. Some things, some of the research I found on why you should flip your classroom gives more time and opportunity for you to find the errors, to detect what they may have missed. If they're misunderstanding, some of that practice, especially with the hands-on things, for those of you that are CNA or EMT teachers, this is a great way for them to go home, review it, and then come back and practice further. And then they come back with questions. It's great. They're like, hey, I forgot about the hand placement for this special test. Well, that's a great thing. They wouldn't have known to ask that question had they not practiced the night before. So those are some examples of why you would flip your classroom. Okay, so this was for when I did my in-house lecture. So those are some more links that you guys can move on to and look at some apps and things that I found that are fun and interactive for your classroom. So that is it. All right, we're ready for questions, Nancy.
Okay, so who knew that a girl from Idaho could talk so fast?
I get that a lot.
Well, you know, I'm over here in South Carolina, so I was listening fast as well. So we have the chat feature, and we're encouraging. I did have a message from a couple of teachers who said, we're trying to take notes as fast as we can. Will we have access to the PowerPoint? So I'll just repeat that. Yes, the PowerPoint will be posted along with the recording of this webinar, and it's in the it's healthscienceconsortium.org, and there's an events tab, and under the events tab there's a drop down for the webinars, and you'll see all the webinars archived there, as well as this one. So give us a few days, but I would think by Monday this will be there along with Michelle's PowerPoint. So Michelle, let's see, are you seeing a question?
I can't, I'm not seeing.
Okay, she's saying, can you go back one slide?
Yes. Here?
Dana, is this the slide or one more? Okay, this is from Dana O'Hara. The one with the deck toys. The one with the deck toys. I'm not sure what she means by deck toys. Do you know? Okay. All right.
Closer to the end. The deck toys one was closer to the end.
Okay.
That one.
Okay, good. And then there's a question. Let's see. Let's see.
Somebody said, do you get any pushback about doing the flipped? Let's see, where was that one? How much pushback do you get to doing the flipped classroom?
I don't have any, and the reason is we have our libraries open before and after school, as well as our intervention, so 30 minutes at lunch or connected to lunch, so they have plenty of access to do their assignment on internet at the building before they come to class the next day. So I haven't had any issues with it because it doesn't necessarily have to be done at home if they don't have home internet at home. And the students know that they can't use that as an excuse because they have a day in between with our every other day schedule. So it does work out.
I know this is Phyllis. One of the things I've heard you mention was if somebody's going to be out or they're out sick or whatever and they don't have internet access, there's other ways that you send the information to them, or maybe I misunderstood that. Can you explain that?
If they don't have internet, again, the expectation is that they can utilize our intervention time the day before, so they can, when they come back, they'll have access, or I am able to print it out and I send it home that way. So it depends on what the expectation is. If it's a video, obviously that would be difficult, but because I see them every other day, I'm able to get that information to them once they do return.
Okay.
I just haven't really had a huge issue with it, so.
Okay, there's one here about how much time do you expect students to work outside of the classroom? I know you touched on that a little bit if they didn't have internet available at home. Is there, Judy, you can unmute yourself. Did that answer your question, or did you want her to speak a little bit more on how much she expects her students to work outside the classroom?
She answered the question. That's fine.
Okay, good. And then Sherry had a question about, is your school a one-on-one computer to student?
Yeah, we do have Chromebooks. We have 32 Chromebooks in every classroom, and classes are set up for about 32 or less students. So we are lucky. And that actually was just implemented this year. Last year I only had 16. So I was, and that's kind of where that blended learning came in. I would have students rotate from the computer station. I would have one lesson or discussion on the computer that they would work at, or video they would watch and work together. And then the next station would be a text where they would have to read an article or follow a scenario of some sort working together. And then the third station would be where they come to me and we do another activity, or me with their small group as they're using those computers. So I'm getting them through that computer activity as we're moving through the blended learning. So it doesn't have to be one-to-one. We're lucky now that yes, I am one-to-one. And so I can do some more quizzes and testing through the Schoology app, but there's other ways to use when you have less. So yeah.
There's also go ahead, Nancy. Go ahead.
A compliment from Susie. It says, I like that you utilize the students to help grade and extrapolate data like wrong answers in order to reteach information in a timely manner.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
Go ahead, Phyllis.
Okay, so somebody is wanting to know what program you're using for flipping your classroom. What is the program you use for flipping your classroom?
Okay, so it's all through Schoology. So it's just like Google Classroom, and I can post whatever I want in there. So I can create a unit, and then I can post the unit lesson, and then they can click on the lesson, or the notes, or the PowerPoint, or the video, and it's just all listed in the online process. So they go in, they log in, they have their own classroom in my class, if that makes sense. So they all go to the Schoology and log in through that, and that's how I flip it.
you know, one of the things you mentioned, this is Phyllis again, one of the things you mentioned about utilizing the students to help grade. I also, this is back in the old days, y'all, but I mean, it's still a similar concept. After that happened, then the students, once I checked them and everything, then the students had to correct their answers because, and they used to hate that, but then they kind of got used to it and they were like, this really does help. And the idea behind that was, if you don't put that in your mind, you're going to continue to remember that wrong answer that you originally put. So this was back before so much technology was around, but I think the concept still makes a lot of sense. And the more they look at it, the more they see it, hear it, touch it, you know, that kind of thing. So I really like the idea of how you're doing that.
Ah, good. Yes.
Okay, I don't see any addition. Wait, here we go. Can we please have a copy of your rules and your code of ethics for students grading?
Oh, absolutely. So I can get that to you, Nancy, and you can post it with this information if
That'd
that
be
works.
great. We can post that as a document in that webinar section as well. So it just complements what you've shared. Getting some more thank yous, and so we're getting close to our closing time, but what the information you shared has been fantastic. I mean, perfect for new teachers and for teachers who have more experience, just adding some new twists and turns to their classroom. And I've already extended the invitation to Michelle to join us again. And so I'll extend it to all of you here on the call. A destination place. We'll be there for our 2020 National Health Science Conference. The pre-conference will be October 27th, and everyone who attends the pre-conference will get a complimentary copy of our newly revised health science curriculum enhancements. They'll be released in October of 2020, but for anyone who attends the pre-conference, that will be part of their registration, that they'll get that, that resource at no cost. And then no cost for the resource. To attend the pre-conference is $200. Then the regular conference will begin on Wednesday, October 28th, and go through noon on Friday the 30th. All the information is posted on our website under the events, and then you'll see the National Health Science Conference where you can register to present like Michelle, and we can make you more famous. You can register to attend the pre-conference and the conference. Hotel information is there. There's also a letter there that we put together, make your case to attend. So you can download that letter and insert your information, take it to your administration, and explain to them why it's such a good investment in you as a teacher for them to support you to attend this conference. So Michelle, we just can't thank you enough for this opportunity to share this information again. And I'm quite sure if you're able to come to Charleston, your room will be packed again. So thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Look forward to having you on additional webinars in the future. And thank you, Phyllis, too, for helping us get this set up.
Thanks, Nancy.
Okay.
Thanks again, Michelle. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.